Appreciate everybody joining today. My name's Adam Parker here with Carnegie, and I am excited to welcome Alana Forte, friend of Carnegie, SVP, Legal Counsel, CCO, Chief of People and Culture Officer with Jacksonville University, to the stage. Alana will be discussing the urgency of diversity as we re-examine higher education through a 2020 lens. If you have attended any of these sessions, I want to share a few quick reminders. The session is being recorded and will be distributed after. I encourage you all to be social. Alana has an engaging content with a lot of questions throughout. So please monitor and interact with the Whova chat and Q&A functionality at the right-hand side of your screen. We sincerely appreciate you joining this hour with us and logging in over the past week of the Connection Conference. With that, I'm excited to have Alana begin the final session of the 2023 Connection Conference.
Thank you, Adam. So first, thank you for tuning in on the last day, the last session of the conference. Thank you for being brave and showing up for a session that starts with the letter D, a word with the letter D in the title. I know this word is forbidden in certain states. I'm tuning in from Florida, so yes, I feel comfortable in stating that there's an urgency for diversity. Cue the sirens. So understanding that the media thinks that diversity is so 2007, hear me out. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, including belonging, are all still relevant. And thinking about our students, our current students, their identities, demographics, it's mission critical that we foster a culture of belonging on our campuses. So I'm going to make this make sense. Yes, we're learning about the urgency of diversity, but I want you to think about 2020 as far as vision, a clear vision, but also with an up-to-date framework. So we're going to start off with a softball. Very easy question. Who is responsible for retention? Because I teach in 2023, please know the answer is on the slide. I think we can all agree that retention is everyone's responsibility. Academic, social, physical, financial, and mental wellness, and a student's real and perceived experience with all areas of campus, both in and outside the classroom, help our ability and factor into their decision when it comes to how we recruit, retain, and graduate students. So what does this mean? An example would be, oftentimes the admissions experience at a college or university, it feels very much like Disney World. It's like, be our guest, be our guest. We really cater for that personalized, customized experience. And then a student chooses a university and other areas may not support the student in the same way. And then a student feels like that program or that college or something on that campus is not the most magical place on earth. And when you think about retention, it's more important and more valuable than ever before. So it's never been easier to transfer. A student can pick up their phone, click on an email, and literally in 5 or 6 clicks, they can apply to transfer to another college or university. It's never been more expensive for a university to recruit or to lose a student. About 20% of all students who enroll in 2-year public schools and 37% of all college students transfer at some point in their education, based on data from 2019, 2020. Now with the NCAA transfer portal rule changes, these numbers have only increased. And then about 10 years ago, when I was looking at through the enrollment manager lens, there were 3 reasons for the most part that students usually transferred. One was finances, one had to do with DWFs and academics, and then one was just students wanted an academically better school or a more competitive school and what they considered in the marketplace. Now when students list their top 3 reasons for transferring, they don't feel a sense of community, they felt social isolation, or it's not the right environment for that particular student. So we all agree that retention is everyone's responsibility, but retention means a lot of things when it comes to the student experience. So now I'm going to ask Adam to help with the question that you all can access and just list in your current role, in your position, List 3 areas of focus that can impact student retention. I'm sure the answers are coming in now.
Yeah, folks are engaging. I just posted that question in the chat. Feel free to answer that question if you're able to, or in the Q&A section, I should say.
As those answers are coming in, I'll just share, I have the seat of legal compliance and HR. And when I think of 3 areas that I can focus on impacting student retention, one is through hiring. Another one is through how we recruit our potential hires. And another one is just through the policies that we have throughout campus and how we enforce them. So those are my answers. Hey, Adam, do you want to just list a couple?
Yeah, I think a few folks, especially in this audience, financial aid, marketing and communications, housing and dining were a few that came top of mind.
No, that's great. Thank you. So we're going to talk about all those things a little bit later on. Let's incorporate those areas into our current landscape. So I always say we are in the ever-changing landscape of higher education. So who are our students? The students ahead of us are so different than the students who are behind us. Google was created in 2001. And so our students have never known a world without Google. The iPhone is older than our high school freshmen. So those are freshmen that in some cases you're already recruiting. Students use their names, their pronouns, their clubs, their leadership areas, and their interests all in their signature line on their email. And then our Supreme Court has determined we cannot use race as one of many factors in admissions decisions. And oftentimes race is in the student's signature line. With technology, social media, and the World Wide Web, students are used to immediate gratification and optimal customization. While colleges are supposed to prepare them for the real world, since birth, the world has shown them that we have been customizing everything around them. So things arrive in 2 days or 2 hours, everyone gets a trophy. And when they're ready for their admissions decision, they kind of want it in a couple of minutes. And we laugh, but we taught them this too. I was reflecting on my college experience. I went to college in the 90s. Looking back, I hope the admission letter had my name on it. But today's letter reads as follows. Dear Madison, congratulations. You have been admitted to State University. The admissions committee enjoyed learning about your mission trip to Haiti and your stellar season in lacrosse. Insert emoji. Based on your many talents, welcome to the class of 2028. Happy face. Please tell your mother Lisa and your pen pal in Indonesia, Suri, we said hello. Signed with a handwritten signature from the president, the chancellor, the dean. P.S. We're outside your house right now with our mascot to say hello to you and your dog Buster. And then about a week later, we customized another letter to Madison's parents. Dear Madison's parents, Todd and Stephanie. I'm kidding a little bit, I'll stop. But somehow we're surprised when our students show up on campus and they wonder why everything's not revolving around them when everything has kind of been customized to their unique experience throughout their life with the use of technology. And then we wonder why their parents are calling us, but we gave their parents our cell phone number in their welcome letter. So I say that to say our current landscape is a bit challenging as we're trying to navigate this through the enrollment and the higher end lens. And then we add to that the complication of, I know you're fully aware of the enrollment cliff and the demographic shift. And on the undergraduate level, we have been stressed, we've been excited, we've been fascinated, we've been depressed, we've been creative on how many different ways we can look at what's going on with birth rates and our future student population and how we recruit students in the areas that we're in. So just a quick recap. We know overall birth rates declined in 2008. They're not born in 2008. 18 years later, They're not going to go to college in 2026. And then when we take a look at who did have children, a lot of white Caucasian families did not have children. And a lot of Asian and Hispanic families did at higher birth rates. And Black families continued having children at the same rate. And so looking at this through the lens of the shift, we have a huge decrease in the population of the United States overall, but we also have a migration of demographics as historically underrepresented groups and minorities are now becoming more of the majority. And when you think about what we've done in higher education, is these are groups that typically we have not served well or the best. And so as we look at Nathan Gross' slide from his book on demographics, you can see that there are only 7 states that will have an increase in the population, and the rest of the United States will either have a decrease or a very marginal increase. And it doesn't matter if you recruit nationwide or regionally, but there's a huge shift. And when you add this to the additional decrease in the over 1.2 million students who dropped out in 2020 and 2021 related to COVID and online learning challenges, this is going to be an increase of an additional 15% drop that we'll see in college enrollment. And so when you overlap that with your recruitment plan and the territories that you recruit in, you'll see that we have to be creative and intentional as we shift how we recruit students. We know that oftentimes students of color or students from certain demographic, socioeconomic groups, they are willing to travel a lot less when it comes to making a college decision. It's 500 miles or less. And so combine that with the rising tuition of colleges and universities and how it's outpaced household incomes. This is a very layered approach and the challenges that are concerning. And the reason why the urgency of diversity is such a prominent topic is because many financial aid models reward merit, but we haven't accounted for the systemic impacts in all of our financial aid models of the growing rate of college students from these demographics that I just mentioned. So over the past 35 years, college tuition has increased about 306%, but family incomes have not. And they've only increased about 24%. And tuition has grown more than 100% compared to the family income remaining almost the same in just the last 20 years. And so I asked you to be thoughtful as you're thinking about the enrollment lens, but also the business proposition of the college and the university. And this is why the enrollment class and the demographic shift shows the increase of students of color, the decrease in male students, the increase in low socioeconomic students, and the increase in students from historically disadvantaged areas. This is the equation that equates to the additional responsibility we have in prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion. So historically, many institutions have tried to be thoughtful in this area, but we haven't been able to keep up with the resources needed to be able to support these students in the way that they ask to be supported. Just today, NACAC put in their newsletter that students of color are reporting that on predominantly white colleges and universities, they're not being supported with the sense of belonging that they're looking for. So as higher education enrollment professionals, our classrooms should be reflective of the communities we live in. We pride ourselves as enrollment professionals with recruiting students from all around the world, with different backgrounds, different cultures, religion, languages. But many of our students grow up in homogeneous communities. And for the first time in their life, when they show up on campus, they have a roommate. And this roommate may be from a different culture, area, religion, a different first language. And the issues of the real world are showing up on our campus. And it is up to us to prepare our students to be globally minded citizens. And how do we do that? Well, we have to unlearn many things that we have taken for granted and we use as a matter of language. I know we often say the fifth. As a recovering enrollment management leader, I need to apologize for the term fit. We recruit students and we say, oh, you'll know when you find the right college or university, you'll find the school, it's going to be the right fit. If we really want students to thrive, to be successful, to do their best work, we will foster a culture of belonging. And according to my shero, Brene Brown asked me to think about what the opposite of belonging is. The opposite of belonging is fit. Our students are so diverse. There may not be a fit for everyone. But if we ask students to show up authentically, the way they are, and we encourage healthy conflict and civil discourse and teach them to have conversations and really think about their own beliefs and ask questions of others and their beliefs, this is a true learning environment that allows a student to be their authentic self and also learn from others and how they are their authentic selves. And so you can see the progress that we've made. I mean, a lot of it's been mandated by law, but the steps is really reaching to a goal of belonging. Gone are the days of 1988 when we said, I don't see color, I don't see religion, I don't see race. First off, it often seems visible, so we do see it. But more importantly, to understand context, to say we don't see it is to say that we're blind to it, to say that there's something wrong with what we're seeing. And there's nothing wrong with different backgrounds or cultures or religions or just a global diverse of different affinities, genders, and sexualities. This all makes us unique, and it compromises the ability of a university to truly educate by not acknowledging these differences. And if we want our students to show up authentically, we should not ignore these identities because we're asking them to have imposter syndrome, and they will not be able to do their best work. In an effort, they may end up leaving the institution, as the data shows. Now, representation matters. Now, historically, just based on demographics, higher education started, more than 400 years ago in this country, and it was initially originated for white men. And so when you look at the benefit of education, you can see that white men are represented in so much of the decision-making or what doesn't matter, courtrooms, hospitals, boards, superintendents, education, boardrooms, all of these things come in to play. And now we really need to be mindful of being representative of the communities that we serve. So what can we do to foster a culture of belonging? We think of social belonging, we think of academic belonging, we think of professional belonging. On our campuses, we should really think about how we network students to be aware and a part of all these different communities within the areas that they serve on campus. So I wanted to share with you a story that I heard some time ago. So years ago, I heard a speaker who I consider to be a marketing genius speak on the Starbucks phenomenon. Now, while he also worked on the campaign for Just Do It Nike, he was a big part of the Starbucks story. So in 1971, there was only one small coffee shop in Seattle that many people enjoyed. So over 2 decades, it became more and more popular. And it pulled in locals, but it also brought in a lot of attraction from tourists from near and far. They didn't serve lattes or the drinks that I can't pronounce. It's like caramel, mocha latte, none of that. But they served thousands of people. And when they thought about what that coffee shop had to offer, they wanted to bring it to communities throughout the world. So they surveyed thousands of people to find out what they were looking for in this type of market. And they came up with a concept known as the third space. And the third space was created so you can find this place between work and home where you can just be. It's a place where you find the chairs are comfortable. They were designed really for everyone. They appeal to everyone. The color of the paint was designed in that way. The decor, the lighting, everything was intentional based on something that everybody appreciated, as opposed to just a fit or something that was just for this particular group. And that's when Starbucks started to grow, and they became this third space, this place between work and home, where people show up for work, They show up to do work. They show up for a first date. Sometimes they show up for a last date. They show up when you're 16. You may show up when you're 76. It's a place that is for everyone. And if you think about your college spaces, do you have a third space? I want you to think about that. I also want you to think about Starbucks, because a couple of years ago, they got this wrong. There was one manager who thought there was a fit of what a customer looked like. And so there was a minority group who she asked to be removed, and she called the police. This is the problem with fit, and this is why we should really think about a third space. Now, when I think about places I've worked on campus, not all college campuses had a third space. And I ask you, if you can't figure out what the third space on your college campus is, get with your colleagues and create one. It should be a place where everyone shows up authentically. And sometimes they play music, sometimes they have food, sometimes it's called the set or the plaza or the yard. There's a large group of students from all different backgrounds, and they just show up. Sometimes it's in between classes, sometimes it's for a pep rally, sometimes it's just to hang out. But really foster this third space, because it's important for community. And even though it's not inside the classroom, it's often instrumental in helping create a comfortable place for our students. And it helps with inclusion, belonging, and retention. So I asked you to think back on the first question and those projects that you can include. And Adam, if you'll just help, when you look back at your list of 3 initiatives, your projects or opportunities, how can you improve the culture of belonging on campus in those areas? So whether some of you talked about financial aid, it could be in how you support students, both in and outside of the classroom. It can be your recruitment plan and territories. What is the best way you can improve the culture of belonging in the areas that you support?
Yeah, as folks are typing answers in that Q&A section in the Whova app, I was thinking back to my time on campus and just around social belonging. I worked in international recruitment, and I always found that food was a commonality point between a lot of our students. So I just create spaces where we'd share food and kind of be vulnerable together and kind of learn from each other. That is one space that I thought of when you asked this question.
I think food is such a great example in so many ways. Number one, it creates community. It also allows us to be inclusive for all the students that we support. So sometimes when you think of the holidays that we observe, and even religious holidays or fasting, how do we show food in our campus to make sure we're showing up for all the students and their specific observances? Or maybe it's just their food vulnerabilities, so food allergies or their food insensitivities. That also allows for inclusion. Just someone on my team is gluten-free, and I brought in a charcuterie board with gluten-free crackers, and she started crying. She's like, "This means so much that you would think about me and to bring in the smart things because I can eat them." But it really allows people to feel loved, appreciated, valued, and it helps with the third space. Thanks,
I think another area on campus that has been a recurring theme during this conference is in the academic setting, or just around accessibility and making sure content or information is shared in a way that is digestible by the audience, regardless of where or how they are accessing that content. That's been a common theme as well.
So I love that. That's actually going to lead over to we say retention is everyone's responsibility. This is the same slide before. We talked about food and food services, but when you think about it through the lens of academics, syllabus, curriculum, pedagogy, accessibility, having different ways to communicate with students, whether it's in visual format, oral, tactile, that's really important. I can think of even just security, making sure everyone feels safe, welcome, not profiling certain students. I think of the faculty and the dean and how they ensure when they're welcoming students, they're welcoming all students and not being selective, and really thinking about the curriculum, the pedagogy. Oftentimes we're starting with new programs when it comes to new social theories and evolution, but we'll make it a minor instead of a major. Is that marginalizing something that's already been marginalized? Adam, is there anything else that we can include?
Yeah, one more just came through, hiring practices that eliminate bias and increase diversity and perspectives among the staff responsible for supporting and recruiting students was one.
That's a
Um,
word.
yeah, resources on campus that educate admissions staff and students about inclusion and how they can be part of a culture of belonging was another.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. I'm gonna bring that up again in another slide. So I've tricked you. So this slide says retention's everyone's responsibility. When you think about retention, inclusion and belonging is retention. It is everyone's responsibility. It's allowing us to foster a culture of success and well-being for all the students that we support. And so every interaction every interaction on campus impacts how students see themselves and others. And when we think of just in how we recruit and hire faculty, staff, and stakeholders, it's really important that this is not a moot or silent point, because the students that we are educating and supporting these days, it's not moot or silent for our students. And this is something that's top of the mind for them. So I want to make sure that we're not ignoring the students' priorities. And if you focus on inclusion and belonging being everyone's responsibility, someone just mentioned the training. Cultural competency training is extremely important. This is almost the exact opposite of what we learned in the 80s. And so it's important that we acknowledge what we learned and in some respects unlearn in order to be able to support the students that are in our classrooms and on our campuses today. So thank you for your feedback on that question. That's gonna help us get to our strategic plan. When you're tasked with building a strategic retention plan, it's natural to include diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. When you view the lens of your goals through the lens of the student, you have to prioritize what a student wants. If I was having a party, I would probably play yacht rock. But if I was having a party for our students, I would ask the students what they want to play. So I highly recommend when you're developing in your strategic plan, you get a mentor that is a high school or a college student. They will keep you relevant in ensuring that the goals that we are working on are clearly tied to what students want. And that will allow us to not only admit students, enroll, recruit them, but also they will graduate with success. When I think of this through the priorities of a strategic plan, sometimes I'll start with a survey. I survey students and employees. We do critical climate surveys, and that's key to assessing what culture and climate means on campus. This is way more impactful than what we've done maybe in 2 or 3 decades ago, where we prioritize maybe fiscal concerns. Now I think they're directly related in a more intentional way. I think it's also important to, when you're drafting communications, include your student government, or if it's a emergency crisis response, have students look at it and get their feedback as well, because they are going to be the major player in our work. In many ways, they're our board of trustees because they're managing so much of what we do in a way that is critical to our success. So in many ways, so this is a question that we're asking, but I'm going to flip it to our strategic plan and I'll ask it on that slide. So tasked with building a strategic retention plan with a lens of inclusion, what would it include? And these are just some ideas that I wanted to ensure that you could share with your colleagues. If your university has cross-campus conversations on these topics, then it will make the work of admissions and enrollment officers that much more valuable, because you're impacting every area of campus. So admissions is not creating the Disney World experience and the rest of the campus is falling off in some way. So these are things that we've looked at, whether it's technology and access. We, reworked our syllabus language to make it more inclusive and thoughtful. We've also provided resources that have to do with our support services, both on and off campus. We have academic policies and language that are more inclusive of all the students. We've had to adjust and rework a lot of our enrollment policies as it relates to the decisions that have come down within the state, but we haven't adjusted any of our goals when it comes to the impact or success. We just wanted to make sure we did it through a lens to support all of the students that were recruited throughout the globe. Are there any questions when it comes to the strategic planning? I know these questions were the same on both slides, but I wanted to be thoughtful in giving you some bullets or nuggets to brainstorm.
Yeah. When I put this in the chat, I know representation came up. I think having people with diverse opinions and viewpoints in the room when the decisions are made is so important, because all these decisions around retention can impact individuals in very individual ways.
Oh, that's good. And when it comes to having diverse stakeholders not only weigh in, but thinking about the students and having them weigh in as well. So often as universities, we are fearful of making a statement, but college or a university is not a person. We can't personify a college or a university. A college or university really believes in a wide array of topics, and our stakeholders are the ones that have different beliefs and ideologies. So Jacksonville University is not a Republican, it's not a Democrat, it's not a Christian, it's not a Muslim. We are a university that welcome and value all those different ideologies, religions, beliefs, gender, sexuality. And so when we make a statement when things happen, it's often to facilitate conversation, healthy conflict, allow people to get perspective, host a program or event. Sometimes it's to offer resources on what's going on in the community or mental health or EAP support. So I ask you to be thoughtful instead of always choosing. I ask you to think about the students that you're supporting and being thoughtful and really fostering what a university is, a marketplace of ideas and thoughts to be able to do this work and to do it well.
Yeah. Another piece of feedback was faculty support, getting faculty involved to not only hear how they feel, but how they make students feel and belong. That was another point that came up.
Thank you, Adam. That's great. It sounds like you all helped with the keys to belonging. So this is how we will end. So basically the keys to belonging for your campus, feel free to take a picture of this slide. But as you're leaning into technology and you're being thoughtful with how you teach and train cultural competencies, I suggest that you re-examine when different decisions are made, you re-examine your policies with the new lens. So you're not just changing one thing, you're being more comprehensive for your students and thoughtful, because you might have to adjust in a couple of different areas. And then when you think about increasing retention efforts, that starts before the student steps on campus, but it doesn't end when they're there. So really thinking about the staff that are supporting students, whether it's your academic assistants and all those, the people on campus who are helping with disability support, or student health counseling center, when you're thinking about how students are learning how to map out their classes and they're working with those stakeholders. They too need cultural competency training to make sure they're thriving and being able to communicate well with the students that are in front of them. So I hope this was helpful as we think about the urgency of diversity. This is something that's near and dear to me. So I ask you to be bold in this work. And if at any time you have questions that we don't answer today, feel free to scan. Sorry, we'll wait to do that. Feel free to scan my contact information, and I'm happy to keep in touch with you. It's fun to brainstorm these things sometimes.
Alana, I thought this was a great session, and I really enjoyed diving into all the statistics. Our audience has been great as well. Appreciate all the participation there. I know everybody's going to watch this recording and recycle some of this content and really dive into it. Alana, are there any final parting words or comments that you'd like to share as we depart today?
I just wanted to say thank you, Adam. You've been a great moderator. I appreciate you. Thanks, Carnegie, for also always having such relevant and helpful content. And to my new friends at the Connection Conference, I hope you keep in touch.
Sincerely appreciate that. With that, I have the opportunity to conclude the 2023 Connection Conference. Be sure to check back at carnegiehighered.com to monitor the resources tab over the coming weeks, as we'll be posting out all the conference sessions for you to review. Additionally, we would really enjoy to hear your feedback and sessions that we could potentially include next year. With that, I encourage y'all to tag, comment, and share with us at Carnegie HQ. With that, thank you for joining, and we wish you the best